This is a Jeep, but instead of 4 wheels, it has 6. Only around 24 were ever built, and today, only 6 are believed to survive. But this wasn't a homemade conversion or some strange post-war experiment. It was a real military project by Willys. And the most interesting question is, why did Willys build a 6-wheeled Jeep in the middle of World War II? It didn't start with the idea of building a bigger Jeep. It started with a gun. In 1941, the U.S. Quartermaster Corps was looking for a self-propelled platform for a 37mm gun. Willys took the standard MB, the type of Jeep that would later become a symbol of the Allied armies, stretched the frame, and added a third axle. That created the T-13 prototype, and later the T-14. Unofficially, it became known as the Super Jeep. The gun idea worked. But in the end, the Army chose a different path, the M6 gun motor carriage. So the 6-wheeled Jeep had to find a new role. So Willys did what often saves failed military projects. It tried to find the vehicle a new role. The stretched Jeep was turned into a tractor and a cargo vehicle capable of carrying 3/4 of a ton. That is how the MT-TUG was born. Technically, the MT-TUG combined familiar Jeep components with a new 6-wheeled layout. Under the hood, it still used the same 4-cylinder Willys Go Devil engine, producing about 60 horsepower, the engine of the standard military Jeep. But now, it was no longer moving a short MB. It had to pull a stretched, 6-wheeled vehicle weighing around 1.4 tons. And even then, the MT-TUG was not a slow tractor. On the road, it could reach about 55 miles per hour, or 88 kilometers per hour, and travel roughly 300 miles, or 480 kilometers, on one fuel load. Willys was not trying to sell the Army just a strange prototype. It was trying to sell savings. The idea was simple. If this vehicle could do part of the work of larger Dodge and International trucks, while still using about 65% standard Jeep components, the Army could save steel, fuel, and maintenance time. According to Willys, each vehicle could save around 2,000 pounds of steel and up to 40% in fuel compared with larger trucks. But there was another side to the story. The MT-TUG was no longer as compact as a regular Jeep. It was longer, heavier, and less maneuverable. It was a vehicle between two worlds. Too large to remain a small Jeep, but too unusual to fully replace a real military truck. And this is where the story became even more interesting. Willys offered the Army a version of the MT-TUG as a field ambulance. The idea was simple. One vehicle could be a cargo carrier or a medical vehicle, depending on the mission. But this is where an unexpected problem appeared. An ambulance had to remain a medical vehicle. A machine that carried weapons or ammunition could not also have protected medical status. Otherwise, it could lose the protection guaranteed to the wounded. For the Army, that was too risky. So the international rules of war closed off yet another possible role for the MT-TUG. The MT-TUG was tested at Camp Gordon Johnston in Florida, in deep sand, exactly the kind of terrain where ordinary vehicles quickly lost their advantage. And there, the 6-wheeled Jeep performed very well. The vehicle was praised for its off-road ability and ease of handling, and its performance during the tests was even described as exemplary. But even that did not save the project. The MT-TUG was even used as the basis for a snow tractor designed for northern conditions. One of the 6-wheeled Jeeps was converted into a half-track vehicle for moving through snow and difficult terrain in Alaska, against the backdrop of the fighting in the Aleutian Islands. But that project never entered series production either. Once again, the MT-TUG showed that it could become the basis for many different machines, and once again, it was left without a future. In the end, the problem was that the Army already had Dodge WC, International, and other trucks, with factories, spare parts, driver training, and an entire logistics system already built around them. To change a system like that, a new vehicle had to be more than just good. It had to be necessary. The MT-TUG was a smart idea, but it was not necessary enough. 15 vehicles were built under contract in the spring of 1943, together with the experimental prototypes. The total number was only around 2 dozen. The MT-TUG never entered series production. One of these vehicles had the strangest fate of all. According to eyewitness memories, in the 1950s, boys at a scout camp in the United States were cleaning out the space under a dining hall when they found an old military Jeep. It still had Army stars, numbers, and data plates on it. No one at the camp fully understood what the vehicle really was. To the children, it was just a strange military Jeep that had been left in storage. Instead of cleaning, they started playing around it. Fortunately, the battery was dead, so they could not start it. Only decades later, when researchers and collectors began writing about the MT-TUG, those same people realized just how rare the machine from their childhood really was. Most MT-TUGs that did not end up in museums or private collections had a much simpler fate. They were sold off as military surplus. One MT-TUG was sold at auction in 1947 for less than $500. 6 wheels. A gun it never carried. An ambulance it was not allowed to become. An armored car it never became. A snow tractor for Alaska that also never entered production. The MT-TUG was a Jeep that could almost do it all, and maybe that was exactly why the Army could never decide what it was supposed to be. Do you know an even stranger failed U.S. Army vehicle? Tell us in the comments, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story.